Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Championship Leadership Podcast. And today I'm excited for our guest. He is the head of the Successful Male of North America. He is a co-host of the Successful Male podcast and also the head editor for the Successful Male magazine, or managing editor. Joseph DiRoma is our guest today. He's out of Tampa, Florida. You can find him, and of course, we'll link all this up as usual, but at Joseph DiRoma on IG and LinkedIn, and his last name is spelled DiRoma. So Joseph DiRoma, you can check out thesuccessfulmale.com for more information as well on what he's got going on. And I'm excited to get into his story and have a conversation with Joseph today. So thanks, man, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me, man. It's good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always love kicking the conversation off. What Championship Leadership's the name of my podcast. And, when I first heard that, there was a good friend of mine, Joe Williams, who worked with Tony Robbins for about 15 plus years as his senior trainer. And we were trying to think of names, and he said Championship Leadership. At first, I didn't really like it. It was just like that double ship. But it's grown on me. I love it, and I love where the podcast has gone. But what comes to mind for you when you hear Championship Leadership? What does that mean to you?
When I hear Championship Leadership, of course, the first thing I think of is Phil Jackson.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever read his book, Five Rings, but
I need to.
If you've ever been to that level of success as a coach and a leader, where you are leading leaders of professions and that high of industry, which I've been leading people now for about 12 years now. It's one of those things that you automatically think, okay, what are these guys doing to elevate their game to that level, right? And then inspire others to cultivate the most out of them, right? And managing those people in such a way that they can do it all together. And just get out there and win, and it's one of those things where it feels good. You get into that flow with a team, and you just know you're doing it. So I mean, I love the title. It makes me feel it makes me feel good just talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I love Phil Jackson. I mean, dang, what's he got? He had 12 or 13 rings. 12. I think he had 6 with the Lakers and 6 with the Bulls, if I remember right. But amazing. So I definitely want to check that book out. But yeah, that's so true. It's always fun to hear the answers, because it's always, you think you can only define championship leadership so many ways, but it's so cool to hear all the different examples. A lot of people will go to sports automatically because of championship, but yeah, Phil Jackson definitely would be on the top of the list for sure. So why don't you tell us and the listeners a little bit more about you, and so you are the head of the Successful Male, but talk to us about how your path led you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I have a pretty up and down story. I think like most people in life, I was such a great winner in high school that I decided to drop out. And I would say what some people in society would consider a troubled youth. And my parents didn't really know what to do with me. And I lived that life of low integrity, selfish and self-centeredness, and just kind of full blast and negativity until I was about 26, right? I won't bore you with all the details.
And how old are you now?
I'm 37, to be 38 soon.
Okay.
So again, the awakening was about 2 months before I was to have my first child, my son Damien. Something switched in me that said, hey man, what are you doing? I was facing some consequences again for my decisions, and like my mom always said, everything we do has our name on it, so you're going to have to live with that. And I just took a 180, and I put all that energy and all of that passion and enthusiasm for doing the wrong things into the right things. And initially my journey started on the spiritual side, and kind of cleaning up the mess that I had caused from an integrity standpoint, which just from my experience is much easier kept than regained.
Yeah.
And and integrity and self-worth, they go hand in hand, right? If you're behaving below your integrity, you're not going to feel great about yourself. You know, you constantly are living outside of what it is to your own being. But as you and you continuously lower your goals to match your behavior, but in reality you should be raising your behavior to match your goals, and your self-worth will follow. And what began to happen is that passion for spiritual development then translated over to the leadership realm, because I was also leading people at this time and all of this mess. And it was like you could just see all the interminglings of two. And what took off for me most was I began to read, you know, and when I first started, I had to always meditate before I read, and I had to listen to my headphones in order to just read, right? Because the monkey brain was so apparent. And over time, you know, I read 1 or 2 books a month, and I've been doing that for the last 11 years. And it's all been leadership, business, and you know, spirituality. And what started to happen is as I started to grow, my team started to grow. My businesses that I ran started to grow, and got heavily into Jim Rohn at that time, which was, you know, Tony Robbins' mentor. And you know, something that, I mean, what he said just hit home with me, which was, you know, personal income seldom exceeds personal development. You know, you have to work harder on yourself than you do your job. So again, for somebody that lived the wrong way for so many years, you put that same type of energy into doing the right things for yourself. It's funny, you always find what you're looking for, you know? And so what started to happen is I began to really separate myself from a lot of the people, you know, in my industry. I was in the restaurant industry, still do consulting there, but leading teams there in operations for about 10 years. And as I'm sure you can imagine, people in the restaurant industry seem to make a lot of poor decisions quite often in leadership. It's just, you know, it's that type of deal. And with all those missed opportunities of others, I just kept rising up the ranks until finally, you know, last year, I was in my last promotion, right? I was the managing partner of a restaurant for about 5 years, overseeing about $4 million in revenue, and leading a team about 70 to 80. And you know, it could change. And then moved into you know, a corporate role with you know, at the corporate office, overseeing all 189 restaurants, corporate productivity, delivering initiatives that drove profit margins as well as simplified operational execution, working hand in hand with the president and vice president. And the great story about that is when I started with that restaurant, I was riding the bus, reading my books, serving tables. And in, you know, 9 years' time, you're then working side by side with the president and vice president and affecting change in an organization that affects thousands of people.
Yeah.
And I say that because that proves the point of what Jim Rohn said. In that time frame, I worked harder on myself than I did my job every single day.
Yeah.
And I sowed what I reaped, man, or I reaped what I sowed, right? And so again, it's one of those things. I don't have I had a GED. I don't have a college degree. And I was the one that ended up in the job that the number one requirement was a high school diploma, a college degree.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, and it's about breaking down those boundaries. And that's what leadership has really, really done. because
Yeah.
if you can lead teams to be successful, that's incredibly attractive to mostly anyone.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. That's an incredible story. So how does that lead you to the successful male?
Yeah. So in that time, I discovered, while leading these people, that I excelled in people development,
Mm-hmm.
and that I just started churning out managing partners for this organization like it was my job. And they're
Yeah.
like, what's this guy doing? You know, and I always made scheduled in my calendar every month time to sit down with my people and work on them as a human being, because I wanted to make them more valuable so they got paid more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very simple. And as by doing that, I discovered that my passion for personal development needed a translate into the coaching world. So then I sought, 2 years ago, I took a course to be trained in ontological coaching, specializes in ontology, which is the study of being,
Yeah.
our body, emotions, and language. Somatics, which is, body work and understanding body language, as well as deep dive into emotions, where we did linguistic deconstructions of 60 emotions to really understand how people, generate possibilities within their life. So getting classically trained as a coach led me to being hooked up with some people that were rolling out the successful male here in America. I got hooked up with them. The founder and I, his name's Ron Maholtra, just had a huge explosion between him and I as far as hitting it off, and just being on that elevated level with another man. It's really, really cool, and
Yeah.
someone's talking your language, and you're having like these deep conversations, like you're hanging out with Eckhart Tolle and stuff.
Yeah.
And and it's like, oh, hey, there you are, I finally met you. And he's like,
Right. Right.
so he started throwing all these things my way with the podcast and this magazine, and he had this course, and it was derived in Australia, and now we're rolling it out here. And that's the biggest thing, right, is men's personal development. And we say specifically the men because it's the greatest need right now, we feel, in the world. We're really in a lot of the mess we're in because mostly men in power right now, right?
Yeah.
So we felt like attacking the men's sector first would promote the biggest change to the collective.
Mm-hmm.
We also felt that when we looked at men's statistics, with suicide rates, domestic violence, divorce rates, alcohol and drug use, workplace deaths, and the jail population is all predominantly men. Huge, huge percentages of all just men. And it's really, that's something needs to be done about that. The other piece is that we're living in the most abundant country and the most abundant times the world's ever seen. And if you're not creating wealth right now, it's really on you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we wanted to provide that financial literacy and success education to men to be able to change that, right? And get out of that paycheck to paycheck mentality, and teach them to thrive, not just survive, right? So the program itself is a comprehensive e-course called the Success Blueprint, which has 27 modules with videos and a workbook for each one. And that's coupled with a mentor for mentoring and coaching. So that way you can really have holistic transformation in 6 months. So it's really like taking the best of everywhere things, and putting it all into a package for you to be able to achieve more, have more fulfillment, and more confidence in your life.
Awesome, man. And so what happened, or what was in your life, or maybe not in your life, that made you want to lead a movement like this? like
Great,
personally?
great question. Great question. I think the transformation that I had in my own life and being awakened to the possibilities and gifts that I have. And I'm not
Hmm.
special.
Yeah.
I'm special, but I'm not, right? I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
special because I'm
Absolutely.
Joseph
Yeah.
DiRoma. There'll be no other person. There was never one before me. There'll never be one after me with the same set of personality traits, my makeup, everything, right?
Yep.
So in that sense, yes. And then awakening people to that realization that it's the same for them
Yeah.
and helping them uncover what their gifts are to the world, so that they can have that fulfillment, that self-love, and be able to look in the mirror and be satisfied with who they are. I mean, that's an incredible feeling,
Hmm.
especially coming from somebody that looked in the mirror and hated himself because of how he was behaving and
Yeah.
treating others,
Yeah.
right? So I think the power of transformation is the main driver, especially, like I said, we have so much abundance, convenience, $5 coffees in our lives.
Yeah.
It's like, and you're not, and you're still not happy. Well, why
Right.
is that? It's
Yeah.
because you've done no intrinsic development at all. And I want to bring that to people.
Great. I love it, man. It's so needed too, right? So it's great to see people like yourself that are taking those stands to do that. What would be what's a moment that you could share? This is a question I love to ask. Is, I call it the critical moment in your life, the turning points, that fork in the road moment where had you made a different decision, you could very well be in a different place in life, but you didn't, right? You had the courage to make the decision that you did. And I think we all have, multiple times in our life, but we don't always recognize it in the moment until maybe even later down in life. Um, is there a moment that pops out to you that, man, had you chose differently, you could be a very different place? Because I think the entrepreneurs, business owners that listen, many of them probably finding themselves in this moment right now, and they're trying to figure it out. Like, what do I do? They kind of know where they want to go, which is probably that road less traveled, and yet there's a lot of pull the other way too. So yeah, is there a moment that sticks out to you could share with the listeners?
Sure, man. This is a great question and incredibly relative to like right here, right now.
Yeah.
So that company that I was with for a decade,
Yeah.
on this Thursday will be a month ago, they laid me off,
Oh, wow.
right?
Yeah.
American corporate, organizational restructuring, had nothing to do with merit, performance, or anything, just because,
Wow.
right? So let's
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
I was building out this business that I planned on rolling out this month, anyways,
Yeah.
for almost 2 years
Yeah.
while I was working full time at the restaurant and then 9 to 5 in the corporate office.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, like we all say, you got to be hungry. You work
Yeah.
9 to 5. You got to, sounds like you're, working 7 to 11 every night too. And, all
Yeah.
this stuff we talked about. And I jammed on the weekends. Um, Running restaurants was never, it's not hard for me to put in the work doing this, right?
Sure.
Like, but what I would say is that, I had planned on leaving, my wife and I decided next year. And, you put that into the universe and you're vibrating at that level, it's bound to happen, right? So it's basically like the universe decided it's time now for you to go out on your own, right? And you have to listen to that and flow with that. But the big change happened last week. I was about, 3.5 weeks out from being let go. And I handle myself with dignity, respect, and professionalism, because everyone's watching when you go through an experience like that.
Yeah.
And you have an ability to showcase who you really are and what your character is. And you're either a lighthouse, or you're a boat slamming into shore, and you have to choose. But what I would say is that I observed myself, almost like above myself, and watching how my subconscious mind was reacting in all of this. And for 2 weeks, it's circling the familiarity of what it does. And it's like, you've always gone to a job. You've always worked for someone. You should go do that again. Right. and it's playing that same tape that it's been happening, you know, since I was, you know, 14 and started working. You know, that's a lot of time. It's 23 years worth of conditioning to your mind that you're now trying to unravel in a couple of weeks time. But what happened is that by observing that, getting deep into visualization and meditation for what it is that I want to truly do and the path that I'm trying to go forward, you get this click. And then all of a sudden you get this burst of energy, you get this burst of passion, and then you know you're tapping into that well, that resource that is unending energy, right? So that was the aha moment for me, where those limiting beliefs subsided, and now it's all in on this. And you have those moments, right? And you can either get to that point and feel that pain and feel that growth and sit in that fear, and you can run and scowl and go do whatever it is that you don't want to do, but you have to do, you feel like it. Or you can walk through the fear, grow, lean into the pain, and have what you really want, because that's where success lies. So that's where I'm headed.
I love it, man. That's incredible. And it's lean into it. You know, that's where that decision is, right? I think it's a lot of fear. It's a lot of unknown. We want to sometimes stick with what a lot of people would consider the safer play in the short term, but I think it really turns into a lot of regret for people down the road when they look back. So to hear these stories is hopefully validation that, hey, you know, you're not the first person to ever like take a leap, and just know that it's going to work out, right? As long as you're willing to put the effort, the time, the energy, the work into it. So powerful.
Absolutely. You know, and I would add that, just like I said before, being trained in the emotions, right? Well, fear is an emotion that's available to us for a reason. You know, like I should not get into a cage with a lion at the zoo. You know what I mean? Like that's a healthy fear, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I think what people really need to understand that really has served me in my path is courage is only available to us in the presence of fear, not in the absence of fear. So if I'm not afraid, I can't draw on the courage to go through the fear, right? Understanding that and drawing on courage, that's what people are attracted to. They're not attracted to someone that's over there all afraid. They're attracted to someone that's faced the fear, drew on courage, and went through it.
100%. Yeah, that's a great point. Like, people are drawn to people that are living, choosing to live, and not hunkering down in the corner, like succumbing to fear. So I love that. I want to respect your time here. And as we wrap this up, what are one or two things that you could leave with the listeners that if they implemented today, they would be able to help move themselves forward today?
That's a good question. I mean, the only thing that I would give to anybody is what I have experience with that's worked in my life. And the great thing about that is it's not anything that I invented.
Sure.
It's something,
right.
that, you know, so
at this point, there's not a lot new out there, right? It's just taking what we learned and using it for our benefit.
The things that I do, that I've been doing for the last 11 years are meditation daily, minimum 10 minutes minimum. And don't be afraid. Everyone sucks at the beginning. So you know, the second thing is I read something every day, minimum 10 minutes. And the last thing that I always do every single night is contemplation. On the front end, I'll start there, affirmations as well. So affirmations, meditation, reading, And then the last part is contemplation. And that is just like Benjamin Franklin, you reflect on your day and you say, okay, where was I a good man? And I showed up in the character of who I want to be, right?
Yeah.
Pat myself on the back and then say, okay, where are some things throughout my day that I didn't show up in the man that I want to be and I want to become? Is there an amends necessary to somebody? Do I need to clean that up? And reflect on that and say, okay, well, how could I have handled myself different next time, right? When I'm presented with that same adversity. And then, really my biggest message to anyone other than those practical steps that I always tell everyone, do the work.
Yeah.
Every time that you're presented with an opportunity to show up for yourself in doing the work, do it to your fullest ability, and you will be surprised at how good you feel. There's no fast way. There's no shortcuts. There ain't no free lunch.
Yep.
If you show up and you do everything at your full capacity that's placed in front of you, you will feel better than you've ever felt. It could be making your bed. It could be brushing your teeth. Every time you do something to your fullest ability, you're telling your subconsciousness what you're worth.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. That was awesome. What any last words before we wrap this up? I really appreciate having you here today. So yeah, any last words before we finish out?
I'd just say, hey, hit me up on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I love meeting new people, connecting with anyone. There's tons. I mean, I've just met so many people in the entrepreneurial space, and I'm just really about collaboration and lifting people up and give and take relationships. So if you're somebody that's looking to grow or you're looking for, somebody to rap with, hit me up. And it's, let's go get after it, man. Championship leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And hit him up, listen to his podcast, check him out, thesuccessfulmale.com. I appreciate you, Joseph, for being here today. Thank you so much, man.
Hey, thank you so much, Nate.